You're still watching Prime Morning, and this is Prime Insight. Yesterday was Children's Day. Now, when I talk about that, I'm talking about all children across the world. Today, we bring you the conversation with child vulnerability in Ghana. Now, I want to read a little bit about the statistics of children in Ghana, those who have access to education, those who don't, and everything. Today, we'll talk about everything right here and see if we are making enough progress with regards to our children who are supposed to be the future generation. So I'll start by reading what the Ghana Statistical Service monthly press release did release, and this reads, it was released on the 5th of November 2022, and it reads 1.2 million children in Ghana from the ages of 4 to 17 years are not attending school. Statistics from 2021 Population and Housing Census reveal that 1 million, that is 1.2 million children of children of school-going age in Ghana are not attending school. Out of that number, almost 1 million children have never attended school. Now, that's quite worrying. So we have 1.2 million not attending school. However, almost 1 million have never stepped a foot in school. The Savannah region has 43.2% of children who have never attended school, which is the highest percentage in the country. These findings emanate from the 2021 PHC thematic brief on childhood vulnerabilities in Ghana, which presents statistics on children in Ghana, focusing on the number and distribution of vulnerable children, and it also correlates of children vulnerability. Over 250,000 children, that is 5 to 17 years, have difficulty in performing activities in at least one of the following domains, which is sight, hearing, physical, which includes walking or climbing of stairs, intellectual, which is remembering or concentrating, self-care, and speech. There are 5,976 children in Ghana living without shelter, that is sleeping outdoors. About 2 in every 5 of the children without shelter are in the Greater Accra region, which has the highest share, followed by the Ashanti, which have 15.7%, and Eastern region has a 5.4%. Now, nationally, 51,081 boys and 79,733 girls aged between the ages of 12 to 17 years have never been in union. Have ever been in union, that is married or living together with a partner. Wow. This is alarming. Let me read it again, just in case you didn't understand. Nationally, 51,081 boys and 79,733 girls aged between the ages of 12 and 17 years have ever been in union. That is, they've been married and living together with a partner. This number of children are married in Ghana here. Wow. One of every 5 children have ever been in union is in the northern region, which has the highest number of children ever in union. It has 26,698 child marriages in the northern part of Ghana. The report further indicates that 1/3 of the household population under 18 years, representing 3,863,259 children, are multi-dimensionally poor. The regions with the highest numbers, that's Greater Accra region, which has 550,118, and Ashanti, which has 539,048, have more than 500,000 children, each being multi-dimensionally poor. Let me not continue. Let me just go into my conversation for today, because this is an eye-opener. And of course, when you have this privilege of going to school, you have a privilege of not being married at a young age, you might think it's not happening, but this is really happening. Let me introduce my guest to you, and they will be in better place to answer all these questions as to why this is happening and if the future is going to ever be bright for Ghanaian children. My guests for today are Mrs. Joyce Lanyo. Now, Mrs. Joyce Lanyo is the director, the country director for International Child Development Program. Welcome, madam.
Thank you.
I also have with me Abena Asamoah Bia Osei Akoto. She is the director of surveys with GSS. Good morning, madam.
Good morning.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
All right. Now, this finding is a little worrying for those who are out there and they have no knowledge whatsoever about the current standings with regards to children vulnerability right here in Ghana. Let me ask you first, Abena, with regards to your survey, we need to understand where you reached with this. How did you get to this point? How did you find out that we have these numbers?
Okay, thank you very much. The 2021 Population and Housing Census was undertaken a little over a year ago, and then we came up with results. But basically, we realized that when you churn out the results and you don't go or delve deep into the analysis, you realize that some of the real issues are masked over the let me say, the good stories. So you have here about 94% of children 4 to 5 who are in school, currently in school. But still there are some children 4 to 5 who are not in school. So we want to find out, we needed to delve deep, look at, in quotes, I'm using the word advisedly, the negative, and bring the negative out, such that even if the negative, the numbers look small, can we attend to the negative so that we all ensure that our children will be in school? So basically, the idea is that delve through the data, see where the need is, and then bring it up for policymakers to also attempt and ensure that these are addressed, and then we all grow together.
Right. Let me ask you this one before I move to Madam Joyce, because, of course, it's a little bit worrying to see this. Now, is it better as compared to the previous year, or is it getting worse?
Relatively, in percentage-wise, it's getting better. But, you know, we want to bring out the numbers as well. And, you know, the population has increased. Percentage-wise, it looks improved, but the numbers is what we want to attend to. Relatively, the population has increased. So when you look at the number is also, let me use the word scary. Because if you have 6,000 children who are not in school, yes, can we attend to them and ensure that they will be in school? And then we all move on. And these 6,000, if it affects them, it trickles down. When they grow, it's going to affect their children, and then it trickles down. So can we address these issues in order to nip it in the bud?
Right. Madam Joyce, let me ask you this. What's your general impression on 1.2 million children not in school right here in Ghana?
Thank you very much, and good morning to our viewers. I would like to say that it is really worrying, and we need to take some actions about this. I mean, these children are going to grow to become our future leaders. So looking at the numbers, what kind of future do we have if we transit and they step in? What kind of leadership will we be having with these children not attending school, others ending up in child marriages, this multidimensional poverty not being addressed? It's really, really worrying, and we need to do something about it as soon as possible.
Does this mean that the future of the country is a little bleak? Abena.
We can't jump into conclusion like that, but it still plays a vital role. As Kojo Agri said, educate a girl, and then you educate a whole nation. Here, it is educate a child, and then you educate a whole nation. If even one child fails to be educated, the children that this child brings forth to, depending upon how she or he or she finds herself may also lack in a way in terms of education. So I guess we need to ensure that every child is in school. F-Cube indicates that every child is supposed to be in school, at least basic education is supposed to be free for all of us. But still there are others who are not in school. Some have had some stilt of education.
What's the challenge? Why are they not in school? When you interacted with them, what's the main reason why they are not in school?
Okay, thank you very much. You realize that with census activities, we really don't ask why, because the period for the survey is quite short.
Right.
So it is during subsequent surveys that we delve into knowing why the child is not in school. But with the census, we will have to find out, are you currently in school? Either you are in school now, you are not never been in school, or you've been in school in the past. And you realize that these children, some have never been to school, some have been to school, but in quotes, let me use the word, dropped out. They didn't finish and they are out of the educational system. And others might have finished their JHS and just dropped out. They didn't continue. So these are...
Which could be a result of poverty?
I would say yes, it could be. There are other correlates, other things that contribute to it.
Yeah.
Is the mother or the parents alive? Are they, as we mentioned, the multidimensional socioeconomic characteristics of the household? How do they fare? Are they being able to look after the children? If they are not, some of them push the children into work, let me say. Either they go and sell or they go and do menial jobs in order to get some income for the family as well.
Right.
So these are things that contribute. If unfortunately my mom or my parents pass on and there is nobody in the family who is capable of taking over to see to us that we move on in life in terms of our education and other resources, eventually we
drop out of school.
And
let me bring Joyce into this conversation. Joyce, looking at the numbers is quite worrying. Again, you're looking at it from a certain region which has the highest. Are we saying that we don't have enough school facilities for them, or there's just a high poverty rate in that region?
Thank you very much. And I must commend Statistical Service for this report, because that will help us inform future decisions and come up with policies to help address the situation. Indeed, the report is evidence-based. And so we will say what is really happening on the ground. We will talk about what is happening on the ground. We are working in sort of rural and deprived communities, and we corroborate the report. We accept the report, because indeed, that is really what is happening. Take child marriage, for example. It's happening, and it's sad.
In the northern region, the numbers are, I don't know the right word to use. If I should use crazy or I should use, I don't know the right word to use, because looking at the numbers in the northern region alone is very worrying.
Very, very worrying. And we need to take steps to address the situation. Apart from child marriage, we have issues around poverty affecting children, especially girls in some of these communities. They end up engaging in transactional sex. They also end up in rape, child marriages, and so on and so forth. And all is having the base as poverty-driven. And it is worrying. Children of 12 years get married off to men of about 50 years. Can you imagine? And it's happening live. There is no law explicitly addressing this child marriage issue. The SDGs are there for us to achieve. But if you look at the SDGs, it is a cross-cutting theme for all children, for everybody, including children. But the children are not explicitly, issues around children are not explicitly addressed in these SDGs. If you look at the data, it will be very, very surprising that people are doing this and there is no law, no human right-based law that should come into play when it comes to the abuse of these things. Now, we are also looking at gender parity. Ghana has done so well with the gender parity issues. The literature is clear. But at the local level, there are still issues.
Yeah.
People have the cultural, socio-cultural practices where boys are preferred more than girls in going to school. Certain gender roles. They say, oh, the boy should rather take this stage and then the girl goes this direction. All impacting. Now, I must admit that currently in Ghana here, the issues and the prevalence are very alarming. And we need to make steps and efforts to address it. Otherwise, like the question you are asking, the future, how will it look like when we seed the scene for our upcoming children to take up? Unfortunately, it will be very, very damning for us.
Yeah.
So this is the time, and with the data that we have, we need to come up with serious policies that will, especially with children, we have to come out with a policy on their human rights.
But do we have enough schools? Is another thing altogether.
Let me add to
yes,
it.
please.
You know, we did a report, proximity to essential services, and we realized that some of these communities, as per the regions that we have this problem, distance to the facility is an issue, right? Distance to the facility. You realize that in the north, especially the savannah, the distance from the residential to the educational facility is an issue. So for me, if I am staying in a community where my child will need to walk about more than 3 kilometers, a child who is 4, 5 years, walking more than 3 kilometers to school, I'll prefer that the child stays with me.
Yeah.
So these are the realities on the ground that are also affecting some of these.
And also there's no means of proper transport. You know, if the transport was there, then obviously even if it's a little bit far, it's easy for you to take your child to school. But if there's no transport and you have to walk probably 30 minutes, 1 hour before the child goes to study and comes back home, it's very, I don't know, alarming. Let me just say to you at home, if you want to join the conversation, the WhatsApp number is on the screen. Today, we try as much as possible to read all your messages. So sending your messages today, we are talking about child vulnerability. Now, if you just tune in, we have 1.2 million children who are not in school. We have a high number with regards to child marriage. And it's very, very alarming. If you have the privilege of being in school, you might think this is not happening. But right here in Ghana, we have so many children out there who don't have access to education. Now, Ghana Statistics is telling us everything that is happening. And I'm like, wow, when I read the report, I was too surprised, because in Accra, you might have the privilege and think that, okay, there's free education when it comes to basic. Now there is free education, even in the secondary schools. So you think that everything is sorted, but it looks like it's not sorted in you know, some regions completely. Now, let me bring you in, Joyce. You were making a point with regards to the issues that are surrounding these. If we eradicate poverty, will it help?
Eradication of poverty alone will not help. I mean, parents will have to appreciate the importance of education. Education, per the protocols that we've signed, worldwide protocols, the UNCRC, UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, the SDGs, the Children's Act, and all these protocols that Ghana has appended our signature to ensure that education is available once the education is available, the parents should make it a point that at a certain age, from 0 to 18, you have to participate in education, because that will be your future. If you do not seize the opportunity to get educated, you are running a cycle of people who will entrench the issue around poverty in the near future. But education empowers you. It shows you the way. It gives you the ability to engage, to decide, make informed decisions. And this we need for our children to really acquire the skills as they grow along. These days, you see children parenting children, children walking alone on their way to school. Sometimes 6 years walking with a 4-year-old child going to school. Where is the father? Where is the mother? What is it that is stopping them from accompanying the school? Fortunately, per our research, International Child Development Program, our research indicates that from that age to around age 6, everything around the child is interaction. So it's not about poverty. It's about interaction and getting responsible for your kids, engaging them, giving them the opportunity to also add their voices to whatever is going around them.
Should it be criminalized if you should deprive your child of education if you have access to it?
I think somewhere in our statutes, since it's a right and every child should access, if you do not send your child to school, you fall in foul of the law. And so the law should take you up in that manner for not taking your child to school. But as usual,
it's not being implemented.
No, it's
Can I
not.
also add
Yes,
to it? Some parents may have disabled children. And I don't know if the status of the child. Some are try to hide these children in order for people not to. But these children must also be trained. They must go to school. There are schools for the disabled. Children are suffering from
public schools that is free, because most of them, their problem is that we cannot have access to these schools because it's expensive.
Good. So we are bringing this up. The public schools may not be enough. So then what do? We need to establish more public schools in this line so that at least children, through no fault of theirs, should be able to access education and also grow up to be good citizens and be capable of doing or be enough to serve the potential that they have. Being a disabled is not inability.
Yeah, I agree.
So
with you.
let's put them in schools, get the right schools for them, ensure that these schools are available throughout our regions, at least, for them to also access and ensure that they live up to the potential they have, or God-given potential that
I remember we had a conversation right here on cerebral palsy, and we spoke to a few parents where they said the biggest challenge for them is school. They don't have schools that they can even take their children to so that they can go to work. So some of them have to stop working just so they can take care of the children. So we appealed to the government to try as much as possible to put schools in every region, not even just region, you know, every community have a school for that, so that the children can also have access to education. I have my guest joining me via Zoom. Good morning, Divine. Kindly unmute yourself for me, Divine. Hi, Divine. If you can hear me, please unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hi, how are you this morning? All right, so we'll come back to you, Divine, and have a conversation. Divine Pet is the Senior Program Officer with EduWatch, so he'll tell us more about the educational sector. Now,
we have what we call the homeless children. During the census, we enumerated homeless households. Homeless households are said that people who sleep outside, but they have children that they are catering for. And then also during the population and housing census, on the census night, we go out to find out those who are in transit or on the corridors of streets and various open places. And these we call floating population. So out of these floating population and homeless households, there are children who are not in school.
I mean, with homeless children, I probably about 100%, or if you know, I'm not even wrong, 98% might not even go to school at all because they are homeless. Who is taking them to school? Who is making sure? Just a few of them will see people who are, you know, well-to-do and say, I want to be like you, and so I'll put myself in school. But who are you to go and talk to a headmistress or headmaster and say, I want to enroll myself in school?
So the education...
Yeah,
I'll come back to you, Joyce.
Okay.
Let me go on Zoom and speak with Divine. Divine, if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Fantastic. So we are talking about the number of children who are not in school as of now. The population census, of course, showed us that 1.2 million children in Ghana here, not anywhere else, here, right here in Ghana, are not in school. And it's quite worrying to find out this. I'll first of all take your opinion on it, and then you can also tell us more when I ask you the questions.
All right, thank you, and good morning to your viewers. Yeah, it's true. The right to education is widely recognized fundamental human right, but to so many children, elusive. I will talk about Article 25 of under 1990. It guarantees access to education, and the Article 38 also talks about FQ, free compulsory universal basic education. Basic education at least is supposed to be free, compulsory, and must reach every child. But as you rightly stated, it is not universal, it is not compulsory, it's not free. We have semblance of free of education, basic education. Go into it, there are hidden costs that are deterring some parents from their walks to school. And also, it is not classroom access or school access is not easily accessible to some children. Have to commute long distances to be able to get to school, and that is much peculiar in the country. So you look at it, although the Constitution says basic education should be free and should be compulsory and should be as you have noticed that because of this lapse where we have had in education, in building up infrastructure that has occasioned a situation, some children cannot easily get access to classroom and therefore have to be at home. That says, but some classrooms are also in dilapidated states, some under trees, and even in our last assessment of the medium-term education, we realized that more than 5,000 schools still exist under trees, or under shade. So they realized that because we look at in 2021, when we did an assessment of the school, some parents even told us that, look, because of the nature of the classrooms, I'm going to school. I prefer sending my ward to the farm rather than sending my ward to a classroom. So because of the low investment in expanding infrastructure over the years, I realized cannot get access to school. And then also not about because they don't have access to school. Some have, as I mentioned, because of the hidden costs. So you still realize that even if some of the going to school, and I tell them they have to pay admission fee. Yes, it's reality on the ground in some of the areas in public schools. You have to pay admission fee, like buying of textbooks. Some of them have to buy writing material, and all these things. Parent is too much for them. Action Aid in 2019 out with an assessment in Ga West and then Lang Kwantana municipalities. On the average in a year, parents are paying about 815 for their worst education, public school, which is expected to be free. So imagine that cannot get that amount, although basic education is free. It means that the child will have to. So these factors, coupled with poverty that is so much endemic in our areas, is deterring parents from sending their wards to school.
It's so true. Now, we are coming back to you. Joyce, you wanted to make a point before I invited Divine in. Sorry, I had to cut you earlier.
Yeah, I mean, all the protocols concerning education, the FQ, the SDG4, and all these are there, but still the parent doesn't understand the essence of sending the child to school. I mean, if it is supposed to be free, compulsory, basic, the parent will have to come up with something to facilitate the child's process of going to school. During our time, in those days when Rawlings came and there was confusion all over the place, our parents sold their cloth. It was next to nothing. And we went to school. And so there should be that basic parental responsibility to appreciate the importance of education and assess it. Once you assess, those hidden costs are there to be addressed.
Let's talk about the children who don't even have parents to take them to school, the homeless children on the street. What about them? Because how do we get these children homes to live in? I worry anytime I get into traffic and I see these children begging for money. I get so worried. I'm like, what is happening? How do we get them off the streets? How do we get them homes to live in so that they can have access to education? Let me start. Abena, do you want to say something about it? Because you are nodding.
Yes. My point is, these children are on the streets. We have the social welfare to take care of
them.
So can we take them off the streets to various homes? I know there's also children's home. There are other homes, SOS homes and all that. Can we take them off? And the other angle is their parents are, some of them have parents. Some, those on the street, some have parents. And I guess we need to bring these parents in, educate the parents to see the need, because it's possible that the background of the parent is that the person didn't go to school. So the person doesn't really appreciate,
should it be
or
education,
it's not,
or it should be criminalized? Because I think as humans as we are, when you take it on a soft side, they don't listen. Maybe you go tough and then they listen to it. Because this in the West cannot be permitted. If you don't take good care of your child, your child is taken away from you.
Yes, that's it.
So if we see you on the street with your children begging, what should be done? Because just educating these parents, they know their children have to be in school, but they're still on the street begging. Joyce, let me bring you in.
Yeah, in fact, and indeed, if you study those children in the streets, their parents are just around the corners, you know, encouraging them, pushing them to go and beg for these monies. And I think that has become their lifestyle. So there should be an instrument, a legislative instrument to criminalize that kind of activity by the roadside. Their lives, even the children themselves, their lives are at risk, crossing the road, sometimes selling petty things. But a Frenchman would say, en cachette, beneath it is the habit of, begging. So our social protection systems, our child protection laws, and safeguarding policies should be rekindled to ensure that no child goes to the road and beg, and all these children are, sent back to school. If you look at these things, they are also foreigners. So issue around migration and migration rights and all those things come in.
I know some of the Nigerians were taken back to their country, so it reduced a little bit. Now, talking about this, let's also even talk about our Kayayis, the Kaya News, in town. Most of them are 13, 14, 12 years, 11 years. They migrate to the south and they are carrying. They don't go to school. They are having children, and these children are also not in school. So it is, how do we get all of them off the streets? Because, I don't know, these are homeless people as well. They migrate to just for greener pastures. So what are we not doing right? Let me ask, if your organization, as an organization, what can you do to support the government in this particular issue?
Well, for us in the civil society space, we create the awareness of the importance of going to school, and especially the parental participation in their children's activities in school. So that, and we bring in people of status who have come out of poverty, of nowhere, and show them as mentors to these girls or boys to appreciate the importance of education. My background was quite poor, and it was going round, but my mom stood up for education. And this was the time when things were very hard for us. And I can say, I always put myself to say, these are the benefits that I'm reaping, is breaking the poverty cycle to some extent. Where I am now, my children will go further than where I've gotten to. And so there should be constant awareness creation that, look, standing by the roadside will not yield you anything. And that school is the key. Education is the key. If you achieve education to a certain status, you can decipher what is good for you and what is bad. You can make your case wherever you can argue, you can access job, and provide the skills needed from you to be able to achieve. If you do not go to school, it's a huge challenge. The other time I was watching television and I saw this young man who was a porter, like a porter in one of the shops. And so the question was, why are you here? You are quite young. I couldn't go to school. I couldn't finish. I got to GSS. I had to stop and come to Accra. When you come to Accra, there is nothing on the table for you here in Accra. You can only access Accra if you are educated. Then you find your fit in the system.
What makes them think Accra is the way to heaven? I think that's where the issue is. They think Accra is the way to heaven. But answer that, and then I'll quickly ask you our final questions because we might not have enough time. So, Abena, you want to say something?
Accra is the capital of the country. And just as some of us who are in Accra think America is everything, there are people who think that Accra has all the opportunities for us. Even if I make little money, gradually I can get something to start my life with. So the impression that Accra is where the opportunities are is the issue. Can we create more cities than Accra such that those in the regions won't troop to Accra because they think Accra is better off? So that's what.
Are we failing as Ghanaians?
We might be failing to a large extent, but we still have the opportunity to put the bits and pieces together and move on. There should be serious awareness creation on the importance of education. Most of us, we don't talk about it. So we see it, parents see it as business as usual. Oh, maybe I don't go to school. And so that's all right. And strangely, these children do not go to school. Like my brother said, they don't have the money. But come to funerals, and they will match all the colors from head to toe with the beadwork, the chains, and the cloth, and all those things. So if you can afford these, what about your child's education? Sometimes they do not even feed. They are waiting for school feeding.
I know there was a report on some areas where children were not going to school because there were no food being fed to them. Let me go on Zoom and speak with Divine. Hi, Divine.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so let me just take your final words on this. What do you think is what do you think we can do to help salvage the situation?
All right. You look at and you understand that the underlying cause is poverty. So 17 years of implementing FQ, and we say it is that parents will still send their words to school. They will prefer bringing them to the street. Why would they be begging? Because they are poor. If you look at the children that are out of school, 58% are from the poorest wealth, while 3% are from the richest wealth quintile. That tells the whole problem is more about poverty. And then also, when you look at the geographic, 75% of these children that are out of school are from the rural, percent are from urban areas. And we know poverty is much endemic in the rural areas. Problem is much about poverty. So we should begin to look at how best do we have planned our poverty reduction programs. How best can we strengthen it to rake in more people? How can we strengthen it to ensure gets to the people? While doing that, we look to expand access to education. Like I said, some children, it is because out of their reach, and it falls on government to begin to look at asset, especially looking at the rural urban dimension when it comes to equity in distribution of resources, so that we know that we give some premium to children that are in the rural area, such that when education or classroom is accessible, easily accessible, that alone some of them to be in school, while addressing the issue of poverty, which is larger and creates this problem that we are seeing.
Right, Divine, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We are very grateful. I've been speaking with Divine Bear. He is the Senior Program Officer for EduWatch. And back in the studio, I have with me Abena and Joyce. And of course, I'll take your final words on these. But the question here with your final words is the effect on the country, looking at what we have as of now.
Well, first, let me also suggest from our data, we can tell that these people or who are not going to school, where they are, or the areas where they are. So can we target them and ensure that they get to school? Either we making available a facility in their localities such that they can also access. If the facilities are made available, then we ensure that they access these facilities to take advantage of it. Then
the effect.
The effect is that in terms of if we have people who are not well educated and then who don't have, in quotes, work in terms of decent work. Because if you are not well educated, it's the menial work that you will do. And it's more like you are living from hand to mouth. Mm-hmm. So in effect, it's going to trickle down. As Auntie Joyce mentioned, the poverty becomes endemic in your family. So how do we ensure that we come out of this poverty? It is ensuring that we educate our children. Education gives us empowerment and ensure that we are able to live above what currently we are living in terms of we who are not in school. And then with you being educated, you also ensure that you educate your child, who in turn also climb up, so your family gets better off. Okay. So please, education is primary key. Thank you.
Joyce?
Yeah, I will come up with this point that it is time we look at the children, listen to them, and design interventions that meet their needs. We are a community-based organization, and if you hear what they tell us in terms of the abuses, and it's
by their parents.
No, the children themselves. The children themselves, we interact with them and we hear their side of the story, and you see that it's very alarming in terms of abuse. Even in their own homes, they are being abused by their family members.
Wow.
So children should be given a voice to listen to what they need and design interventions that meet their needs. We also would want the NCCE to take up the challenge of educating the populace
about the rights-based issues, for example, right to information, the right to the dangers of early sex, issues around gender-based violence, and all those things. Because an empowered child is a formidable child. He knows that where you are going, no, it's against the law. And so you cannot touch me or touch certain parts of me. But people touch girls or maybe boys on certain parts of their body, and that's fine. So if we do serious sensitization on rights of the children based on what we've listened or acquired from them, I think there could be a change. And then the final one is to be able to empower the child in all our interventions. It should be demand-driven. Any project should consider what the child is saying.
Right.
And then design whatever it is that the intervention is about to meet the child's need. So with all these and a few other activities, since we don't have much time, I think the child will be empowered enough. The child will appreciate the importance of going to school and its repercussions in future life. The child will appreciate that you can't touch my body because it's not allowed. The law says no. So all the rules and regulations around the human rights of the child,
Yes.
the child should appreciate that.
Right.
And I believe with this and then the importance of the education, we will be making a stride in achieving
Definitely.
the SDGs that we are touting.
Definitely. All right. So a few messages coming in. Good morning, education, as we all should start from the home. In the northern region, particularly, parents do not know the importance of education to their children. Parents also use their children to farm, and some parents also give their children out for marriage for money in return. Due to some of these things, children do not fancy education any longer. I'm a teacher from Northeast region, Senna Makafui. There's a difference between you knowing your child should be in school and the importance of schooling. All right, thank you, Senna, for sending this message. Another one coming in says, watching you live from Asamanka, say good morning, fantastic show. All right, thank you so much for watching us. You can also send in your messages later when other conversations come your way. But I've been speaking with Abena Asamoah-Biah Osei Akoto. She's the Director of Surveys Organization with GSS, and also Mrs. Joyce Lani, who is a Country Director for International Child Development right here in Ghana. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and helping us with this particular conversation. We are very grateful. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we have other conversations coming your way. Do stay.